Okay, what's our annual theme? That's right. Engaging, embracing, and embodying the divine. Yes, it's a mouthful. But it's meant to be a progression, meeting you wherever you're at. Perhaps you're just looking to engage with spirit at the moment, or maybe you're moving into embracing, or maybe you're into the space of embodying it all. The book of the month is the Book of Not Knowing, exploring the true nature of self, mind, and consciousness. And I remember the day that I was talking to Donna Fox over the phone about something else, and she said, Kathy, did you know that the next book of the month is over 500 pages? And I said, no, I didn't. I had, when I do my research for the bookmark at the end of each year, of course I read reviews, go to Goodreads, I read the sample from Amazon, etc., just looking for what people have to say about the book. And I know that a lot of people aren't reading it because it's over 500 pages. But if you think about it as a class, or use it as a part of your spiritual practice daily, it is easy to read and it is profound. This book peels back the onion layers of how we identify ourselves and label ourselves and things in life, and how to get to the very core of who we truly are. Not who we think we are, not the concepts about who we think we are, but who we truly are as being. Now, I too am not done with the book, but I plan to finish it. You can see all my dog ears there. And this author is really skilled. You can tell he's been teaching this for a while, guiding the reader into direct experiential insight, embodying the divine. Direct spiritual insight into being, the topic for today, the self, what is consciousness and what is reality. So he carefully and skillfully guides you to get beyond what you think and beyond what you think you know. The goal is not to gain more knowledge, as I'm sitting here talking to all of you. The goal of the book is to consciously experience your reality without all of the labels, and I'll get into that a little bit in a minute. Many times we think we are experiencing ourselves, but what we're really doing is thinking about a concept of ourself. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Peter Ralston, who's the author, steps you towards the loss of ego identification and steps you into truth, something you can live and embody. Hence why I chose the book. So let me give some examples. In our culture, we don't have a healthy relationship with not knowing. We're actually uncomfortable with not knowing, and we tend to fill in what we don't know automatically. Our mind automatically connects these dots that aren't there. But before knowing can happen, we must have a space for not knowing. Yeah, I know. What does that do? Closes the door. I already know. I don't have to listen anymore. I don't have to hear it. Does that sound familiar in our culture right now? So for social media, I don't usually post very much, and I rarely post anything political, but I did, and I was sorry that I did. You know, it was just sort of like, oh yeah, psst, don't touch the hot stove. So I posted something that was an obvious hypocrisy. A political figure's quote claiming that a political opponent would do something wrong, but then later having a quote that the political figure literally did what they said the opponent would do. And I wrote, "This is hypocrisy." Yeah, the response from a family member was, "Well, perhaps." And then it was a red herring argument, arguing about something that had nothing to do with the topic that I posted. And basically ended with an attitude like, "So do you want to argue about it?" And so privately I sent a message and I said, "Did I trigger something in you?" And the response was, "What are you talking about?" And then back to the argument, "Do you want to fight about it?" So I pulled myself back and I said, okay, not that I don't do this myself. I mean, it's all a mirror, right? No self-awareness about what was being triggered. I mean, I did post it, didn't I? But there was no self-awareness when I asked about the trigger, like, well, isn't everyone angry? Isn't this what we're supposed to do, is argue? Is the ego running the show? Not the spiritual essence. There was no pathway to a road of conversation or peace. Like, we can still disagree and be at peace. What a concept. But it requires work to break old habits, behaviors, and beliefs. So my question to engage was like, I don't want to do the work. I just want to argue. You know, and I have no judgment against that. It's just something energy-wise that this person is exuding. But no, the default is not, do I want to fight about it? So, do you see in this example where there was no space for not knowing? Only space for what it is I do know. Ego, labels, particularly when our belief is challenged. And particularly when our belief is challenged by somebody else, not alone ourselves. You know, really, we lose out when we react. We don't allow that space for not knowing, for learning. No space for anything other than what is known by me. There is no deep listening. I saw a quote recently that says, "Protect your calm." Of course, I had heard of keep calm and carry on, but protect your calm. Yes, because that's where I want to come from. That's where I want my responses to be, so that I can be kind and compassionate even if I disagree. It's not throwing back what's thrown at me. Now, Matt Cavender isn't here today, but I was having a conversation. Oh, there you are, Matt. Matt and I are going to teach a class, and we were having a discussion. And you know, if somebody pushes you, you don't usually just fall down. Of course, if you're caught off guard. But if somebody pushes you, you usually push back. And why is that? You're trying to get your balance. So how do you find your balance when somebody's pushing you? Yeah, you definitely have to, as Viktor Frankl would say, between the action or experience and how you react, there is a space in there. But if we don't practice it, we don't even recognize that that's possible. There's something called Johari's window, which I have brought up before, and it's the idea that there are parts we know about ourselves that others know about us. There's parts we don't know about ourselves that others know about us. There's parts that we know about us that nobody else knows about us. And then there is nobody knows. And the idea is to expand your awareness of who you are. I know when I worked at the university and I was a supervisor, the hardest people to supervise were the ones who thought of themselves very differently than the rest of the people thought of them. They were not self-aware. So there's 4 people around a table. Pretend all of, you and 3 other friends. We tend to all be talking about what we know, not what we don't know. And if you or somebody doesn't know what the other 3 are talking about, how does that feel? Maybe a little awkward, maybe a little uncomfortable. A feeling like, well, maybe I should know this. Will I say, oh, I didn't know that? Maybe. Maybe not. Again, our culture is pretty much that we should all be knowing and that you should be embarrassed if you don't know. But again, that doesn't allow for any space for learning, for discovery. All right. I know some of you aren't going to like this, but I have a little exercise for you to do. With 1 person next to you, and if it needs to be 3 people, that's fine. Chair. Chair. Share with each other the chair you're thinking of. All right, wrap it up. You're having too much fun. Okay. How many pairs or triads out there imagine the exact same chair? 0. Exactly. So one word can be translated into so many different ideas in each of our experiences. What chair was I thinking of? The chair that's at home, which, unless you've been to my house, you've never seen. Sleep in a chair, the sleeping chair. Now, you're all sitting in a chair right now. How many actually thought about the chair you're sitting in? Okay, quite a few of you. That makes sense, because this is where you are. But I want to ask you, is the thought about the chair the same experience as sitting in the chair? That's what this book does to you. You realize how much we talk about things but not have a direct experience. More as we go. We, in order to experience a true direct experience of reality, we have to be honest. And I don't mean like today people can lie and okay, you lied. No, I'm talking about the stories we tell ourselves, the filling in those dots. We need honesty with ourselves. We needed a grounded openness. That means we're balanced and connected in what's happening. And we questioned the unfamiliar territory. All right, so some of you may have read this and remember it, huh? And knowing that a lot of people aren't reading it, I'm going to give you, I'm going to read a little bit of this just to take us a little bit deeper about this. No matter what we perceive, once we interpret it in some basic way, we will go on to assess its value or threat to us by associating it with an array of past experiences and beliefs and supply it with meaning. This meaning renders the thing ugly, expensive, mine, yours, sacred, too big, useful, ridiculous, friendly, dangerous, or what have you. Once meaning is attached, our minds will immediately infuse the thing with some emotional charge, subtle or gross, to indicate it in a feeling sense how we should relate to it. This charge is based on the value or threat that a thing or notion has relative to us. And so this feeling reaction contains information suggesting particular behavior, like should we run? Should we feed it a biscuit? Such feeling charge manifests as attraction, fear, disinterest, annoyance, boredom, importance, repulsion, and so on, as well as many other such feelings far too subtle to warrant a name. The application of interpretation, meaning, and emotional charge occurs so fast and automatically that we do not distinguish any of these as separate activities within our whole experience. Who am I? The one experiencing. Can we just take in without words, labels, concepts, stories, agendas, mind chatter? And this is why meditation is a spiritual practice. Can I just be aware of my awareness? Over the many years that I've been a part of the Science of Mind, I have done a variety of meditations, so that's over 30 years worth. No, I don't know them all. No, I don't practice them all consistently. Crystal and I were having a conversation when I was a mom, trying to fit in time to do meditation. I discovered the Emerson walking meditation. I know I've shared it with you many times, where you just walk with your eyes open as though you're an alien from another planet, that you've never seen anything like this before. You don't know the labels, you don't know what it is, you don't know what it's called. Bidwell Park is magical this way. All meditation is valuable no matter what form you do, because it focuses you on being present. You are aware that you are aware. When I learned transcendental meditation, it was very impactful for me, because the technique is used to help the meditator reach that pure awareness. Yes, you have a mantra, but you don't know what those words mean. It's beyond the words that you have attached all those meanings to and those feelings to, the judgments and the values to. You go beyond the thinking mind, and the thinking mind divides the subject from the object. Pure existence. I am. Not I am this body, I am this person. I am awareness. I just continue to love to use the example of my definition of oneness has continued to change over time. And I still will use the metaphor for people that if I take some blood out of my body and the cells say that they are separate, I can say to it, but you came from one body. Yes, there's a stomach cell and a liver cell and a pancreas cell, but those cells are one body. We are one. Each day we're distracted from our being. When we look to embody the divine, again, a part of our annual theme, we're working to live life in not letting objects, labels, judgments, concepts, stories, agendas take over our presence of mind. So, anybody know the story about the fruit of the tree of knowledge? For those of us that were raised in particular Christian religions, the idea that the serpent persuaded to take the fruit of the tree, the apple, or whatever fruit. Doesn't necessarily, when it started out in the Bible, it wasn't a particular fruit, doesn't matter. So I asked ChatGPT, we are a metaphysical teaching. I wanted to have the metaphysical understanding of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Just love how ChatGPT makes things, I had a concept in my mind, but just makes it so clear. We moved from the non-dual awareness of our being into duality, judging, choosing our material world and senses over the spiritual intuition and divine recognition. And what's the serpent? Yes, sirree. The serpent is the ego, separating thoughts from our being in oneness and defining reality by the material appearances rather than the spiritual truth. So the fallout of us forgetting that oneness and unity leads us to suffering. A catalyst for all of us for conscious evolution. If we choose to step back into self-awareness, which has never gone anywhere, it's always been here, is here now. Yes, it takes practice, and yes, it takes work, because we have these behaviors and habits that we have to overcome. But we can awaken to our true reality, literally, right here, right now, looking beyond the material appearances and just being and experiencing being. Dr. Ernest Holmes, our founder, said, "We should never be afraid of the truth. We should always seek to know the truth and to live by it." And I'd like to say to live as it. Scarlett, if you can pull up the slide. So I told you about my social media experience. Thomas Merton is a theologist, American monk. He's written many books. "I have come to think that the care of the soul requires a high degree of resistance to the culture around us, simply because that culture is dedicated to values that have no connection to the soul." So here we are, a spiritual community, loving each other, supporting each other, connecting to each other, reminding one another of our true purpose, our true being, our true knowing of who we truly are. But that means letting go of a lot of cultural ideas. So some of you may have remembered, if you were following along in our bookmark, that earlier this year we read a book called The Art of Contemplation. He's got some great contemplation in the book. And so I'm going to leave you this week with something to contemplate. And I'm going to have you repeat this so it'll help you remember versus just hearing me say it once. The first thing is, you really only know what you have directly experienced. So we're going to say it together. I really only know what I have directly experienced. Okay. 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 That's all right. This book is 500 pages long to help you understand that. I can't do that in a 20-minute lesson. All right. So after you've had your direct experiences, number 2 is, most of the time we're experiencing many things that we aren't aware of. Most of the time we're experiencing many things that we aren't aware of. And you only really know what you have directly experienced. Understand the conundrum there? How often are we aware of our true being? If we're not experiencing what's really happening. Instead, we're in our mind chatter, our labeling, our judgment, our stories. So you really only know what you have directly experienced. And most of the time we are experiencing many things that we aren't aware of. What I love is our next book is called Journey to the True Self. Discover Your Divine Magnificence, and it just flows beautifully with this book. So I wanted to let you know that. I also want to say that as I was thinking about this coming today, it's like, this is maybe where growing older isn't a great thing because we all think we know more. Something to think about. But I truly hope you find the true nature of your own being by letting go of what you think you know. Namaste.